to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This is where tradition meets truth and nothing is off limits. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I am so excited to be here with world-renowned royal author Hugo Vickers and former press secretary to Queen Elizabeth II and King Charles III, Dickie Arbiter. What a mouthful your title is, Dickie. You have a pretty great resume. I'm very impressed with you.
Thank you very much. I've worked for it.
Yes, and Hugo, you know what? I was reading your Vivian Leigh book this week. My suitcase was too heavy to bring it for an autograph, but you're not just a royal expert. You've done so many other wonderful things too. So I just love that I'm with these two brilliant gentlemen. We're going to talk royals today. Trooping the Color, it's one of my favorite events. This is, I think, my third or fourth year out for trooping. Dickie, tell me some of the highlights for you while you were working within the royal fold. Are the royal family as excited about trooping as we are, as royal watchers are?
Well, let's first of all put trooping into context. Okay. Trooping into context as we know it today sort of had its beginnings around about 1744 with the reign of George II, because he thought it was a good idea to celebrate the official birthday. But historically, it goes back even further, because in the days when battles were fought during the day on the ground in fields, and the walking wounded and those still alive would have to go back to their camp, they didn't know where the camp was, but the banner, their colour, would be trooped in their lines where the tents were, and that's where they would make for. So it was a sort of signal of where to go and sleep for the night before you got back into battle again. And it's been developed into what we know today as trooping the colour. And successive reigns have used it to celebrate the birthday. Queen Victoria was a bit reticent. They actually had to drag her out in 1897 for her Golden Jubilee. And even then it was at Windsor, not at Horse Guards Parade where it is now. But it's a very special day, not only on the social calendar, but on the sort of general calendar. It's something people must see. And if you haven't seen it, and you've obviously seen it, go along and see it. You have to.
Hugo, it's visually so stimulating, but it also, I think it's important to remind the world, because everybody covers this all over the world, that the royal family is such a strong unit. I mean, I look at them on the balcony, no matter how full or how small the group is, and I see unity, and that's something we can look forward to this weekend.
Yes, and now they've, of course, quite recently invented this idea of working royals, so it's only the working royals who appear on the balcony. Because I think at one time, I know Dickie would agree with me, the public sort of seemed to think that the taxpayer was paying for all of them. And the Queen used to invite all the cousins and all the little ones, and so the whole balcony was full of people.
I counted the balcony once, there were 52 up there.
52, but she isn't, of course, she wasn't paying for all of them at all. But so now it's just the working royals, you get that. And yes, and of course there are these different regiments in the guards, and they all have colonels, and most of them have royal colonels. So they are on parade, and Princess Anne, of course, as Gold Stick, also rides in the procession, and it's a fantastic occasion, and it's something of great military precision. I mean, the Queen was incredibly observant of anything that went wrong, and indeed would point out anything that went wrong after the parade was over.
She would actually see, from where she was sitting, she would look at the household cavalry, the horses on the far side of the parade ground, in front of the Guards Memorial. And if a horse was lame, she would tell the colonel, there is a horse that is lame there. She could spot a lame horse from 200-300 metres away. But Hugo was talking about Princess Anne being Gold Stick. Gold Stick was, I suppose, akin today to a personal protection officer. And she traditionally is there as the personal bodyguard to the sovereign. And she does it pretty well, doesn't she?
She does it very well. There are two Gold Sticks, as you know. They're the Colonel of the Life Guards and the Colonel of the Blues and Royals, and she's one of those. So she's not on every single year. She alternates, I think. Yeah. But it's very good. And of course, the most amazing thing, if you ever want to know anything about what you should think about the late Queen, was in 1981 when these blanks were fired, and there must have been a moment when she wondered whether her husband or her cousins or her son had been shot behind her. Somebody rode up to her to assure her all was well. She dropped the reins, controlled the horse, went right through that whole parade and back past it. And I was actually watching on television, and the commentary They mentioned it as a scuffle there or something. Nothing was said until the news later, and then, of course, it broke. But it shows really her enormous courage, because that could have been very serious.
Well, and we saw something, Dickie, was it Australia? Where was it where King Charles had a similar...
It was in
incident?
Sydney.
Yes.
He was making a speech by the Sydney Opera House, and somebody fired blanks, and the protection officers leapt in front after the event.
And you just see how strong this family is. I mean, there's real courage behind both of them in that moment.
The king, then Prince of Wales, he didn't flinch. He sort of looked, wondering what was going on. And likewise with the late Queen. And she did control her horse. She was on Burmese, something that a horse had been given to her by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Terrific horse, absolutely perfect in a parade, unlike the horse that the king rode his first year, which was last 23, and a horse called Noble, again given by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, very skittish, and all his horsemanship to control the horse. But having been a polo player, he knows how to control horses. He was also a hunter as well. On horseback, so he knew how to control horses.
Well, you were talking earlier a little bit about his back pain, and that might be one of the reasons why we see him in a carriage on a nice little cushy cushion. Take me back to that event where he tells you, like, my back is killing me, and you had to say, like, stiff upper lip. We've got to get this show on the road.
It was actually at a polo match in the early 1990s. He was playing at Guards Polo Club, which is just outside Windsor. And it was a charity match, an international, but a charity match. And at the end of a chucker's about 4 minutes, and then there's a break where spectators go onto the field to push down all the bits of turf that have been kicked up.
I know how to do that.
And he lay down outside the clubhouse, and it was all sort of fairly sheltered. And he said, I can't go on. I said, well, it is a polo match and you've got to go on, because if you don't, there'll be a lot of media speculation as to what is wrong. And I'll give it 10 out of 10. He did get back on the horse. But when you've got a back problem and you're on a horse and you're playing something like polo, it is excruciating. And that's why he always has a cushion in the car, and he always has a cushion on the back of his chair. And it's just one of those things that you have to live with in life.
Well, I think it's so important that you bring it up, because we'll talk about some of the other people a little bit later in the show. But the fact that consequences are constantly on the working royal's mind, consequences. Even though I am physically in pain, if I don't show up, there could be negative consequences. It might reflect negatively on my mother, who's the queen. I mean, I just think that is one of the things that makes the royal family work, is the fact that they're constantly considering the consequences. I mean, thankfully, they have people like you to step in and remind them.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because, sorry if I'm hogging this, Hugo, but when it was announced that he had a cancer, that he was allowed to carry on working, but he wasn't allowed to do his secondary role, which is head of nation, which is going out into the country and meeting people, which is what he really enjoys, and he enjoyed it when he was the Prince of Wales. He insisted on being driven to Buckingham Palace, because that's the office, rather than doing his work behind closed walls in Clarence House, so he could be seen. The late Queen used to say, I have to be seen to be believed, and he believes that too. So he was seen. In other words, I'm okay, I am having treatment, but I am working, and I am doing my constitutional duty.
Hugo, I'm only kind of kidding, but do you think that Meghan was hearing you have to be seen to be believed when she uploaded the twerking video? I'm just kidding. You don't have to answer that. You don't have to, but I do want to ask you, I think as an American, what I get so excited to see, and I wonder if it annoys the royal family or if it annoys people that are just, this is your royal family. I love that Louis steals the show. I love Louis. I can't wait to see what he does. Everything is just so authentic. He's full of joy. He's full of happiness. Do you think that the way that Harry and Meghan have talked about how the royal family dismissed them because they stole headlines, do you think that there's any of that when it comes to the beautiful Wales babies and how we are all so excited to see
I
them.
think the Wales children are, absolutely amazing, all three of them. And I think that going back to the twerking thing, when I saw that, I thought that it was something had been created by people who really hated her. It was a kind of like a fake news thing.
Yes.
Because I couldn't believe there could be anything quite so ridiculous and in such poor taste. And then it's opened up the question again of, because she's holding her tummy and, was it a fake pregnancy, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, was there no pregnancy at all? All those issues. But of course, what they're doing the whole time is reinventing themselves so that they can get headlines. Mm-hmm. And as things seem to go wrong the whole time, they're always having to do new things over and over again. And that our royal family doesn't have to do because they're working within the system and they just keep going. And yes, I mean, Prince Louis is a wonderful character. I mean, he was sort of taking off his brother the other day, flicking his head and things. But he's very funny.
Yes.
So, maybe he'll do something. But I just hope that he will always be, a good, fun person, and he won't sort of like go completely out of control at some point. But let's hope not.
It's interesting, though, how all three of them look after each other.
Yeah, they do.
They cover each other's backs, and it's absolutely terrific. And Hugo raised the sort of whole business of Louis flicking his hair and sort of rolling his eyes like his brother. And it was a lovely touch.
Yes. And of course, I've said it many times before, but I think Princess Charlotte is a grown-up masquerading as a 10-year-old.
Yes.
And I mean, she is completely amazing. And the way she looks out of her eyes, I mean, I think she's like the Queen reincarnated, don't you?
She is. She's actually a bit like a matriarch.
Yes.
Yeah, well, and we need matriarchs. Yes. I think she's fantastic.
The way that she will, settle down, or look up.
Yes.
And I've actually seen video of the Queen doing that to Prince William. Look up. So.
And to Prince Charles in the earlier days as well.
So
I found a picture of her doing that to him too.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes, he always had a picture of boredom on the balcony, didn't he?
Yes, there's one of her sort of pointing her finger at him rather sort of fiercely. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to trooping, what can the American audience look forward to? Because they're going to be watching probably on TV. What are they looking out for? I think mine, of course, is the balcony shot. Also, is it RAF that flies ahead?
Ours is called the RAF. Yours is USAF.
Yes. So I think that those are two things that I look forward to. But I think this year I'm just excited to see Catherine healthy, because last year we were seeing her for the first time after a while because of her cancer diagnosis. We know that she's in remission now, thankfully. But last year there was still a little uneasiness when it came to Catherine.
And she looked amazing.
Oh, so
She's
good.
really good. I think one of the great moments of the trooping, of course, is, first of all, you've got the foot guards, but I love it when the household cavalry come past, don't you?
Oh,
King's
absolutely
Troop.
terrific.
And you hear the jingling of the sort of, that's an amazing moment.
It
And
is.
I think one of the magic moments of the whole parade. Look, this is pageantry at its best, best in the world. But one of the highlights of trooping is what they call the spinning wheel. And 400 musicians, they're doing a circle. So in the middle of the circle, the guys are virtually static. They're just shuffling their feet to sort of keep round in the circle. But on the outside of the circle, they're really marching at quite a pace to keep up. But this whole 400 musicians, they do a complete circle. So they start one way from the Cabinet Office end, which is the Downing Street end. Mm-hmm. They march towards the Admiralty building, Admiralty Arch, which you can't see. And they, halfway through, they do this spinning wheel. They march back again. Oh. It's fabulous.
So pretty. I am so excited to see it. I love just to be in the middle. I get up really early and I elbow my way as close as I can get.
Big elbows?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Look at these things. And then I have my digital camera and my phone, and I'm just trying to catch it anyway. And then I brought a British flag, but I always have some sort of like British something going on so that, I'm and my nails this year. British flag, corgi for the Queen. But I just think it's the most fun. We just don't have anything like it in the States. I love the way...
Well, every country is different.
Yes, but yours is better. It's fun.
And ours is historic, goes back several hundred years, so we've had a bit of practice.
Yes, yours is better.
Ever seen the changing of the guard at in Monaco? That's
Yes.
almost pure Peter Sellers.
Guard change in Athens is pretty good.
Is it, right?
It really is.
Yes.
It's fabulous.
Oh,
But
wow.
Yeah.
that's another
Bucket
country.
list. Okay, so we were talking about this a little upstairs, and Dickie, you made some great points, as did you, Hugo. The Telegraph reporting that William and Catherine are under growing pressure to up their workload, that they need to support the firm more, and it's less about being around, their immediate family. We heard a little bit of this type of chatter before Catherine's cancer. Then everybody left them alone. They said, go deal with that. So I feel like it was inevitably going to start up again. Here we are today. Dickie, I think it's a little bit unfair. I do feel like we see a lot of Catherine and William, and shouldn't there be a moment of just figuring it all out before you're thrust into the main job?
It's grossly unfair, and it's all about filling up column inches in a newspaper. They want a royal story. Let's create a royal story. To say that they're not doing anything is absolute nonsense. I mean, there are times when William does things and they don't bother reporting on it because it's not sexy enough.
Yes.
There were a couple of photographs of William. You had difficulty finding him in the crowd in Rome for the funeral of the last pope. He does investitures. You occasionally might see a picture if it is a celebrity getting a medal at Windsor Castle. He represents British football or English football. He was president of the Football Association. He's now a patron. He'd be criticised if he wasn't pursuing them and going to their matches occasionally. You can't win. As far as Catherine is concerned, she's doing a fair amount of work behind the scenes. Just because it's not in the court circular in the newspaper doesn't mean to say she's not working. Yes, there is a family. It is a young family. She's doing what all working mothers do with a young family. But they are working, and they are working in support of the king and the wider family. So all this nonsense just fills up column inches.
Yeah.
And it will continue. It happened in my day when there were a lot of royals. There were 15 of them. Now there are 6 of them, or 7 of them, and it'll happen, and it'll continue happening. If that's what they're happy with, let them fly with it.
Hugo, I want to ask you, because we did see the Princess of Wales this week. She looked amazing. Surprise, surprise. She was visiting the new V&A. This is the East Storehouse, and it's a new museum that opened to the public 2 weeks ago that is at Queen Elizabeth's Olympic Park. Can you explain this to me? Because you're very well in the know about this new venue.
Well, they V&A had, they had a huge fundraising campaign to build, and I think because the V&A, although it's quite a big building, wasn't big enough, and so they've done that. And of course, she's been very involved with all those things for a long time. She's also patron, I think, of the National Portrait Gallery, and so that's one of her spheres of interest, which is nice. And so it's great that she went down to see it, and I'm sure she will have been very popular and also very much enjoyed it.
I love walking around, and I believe it was at the V&A Museum. They have a little plaque that has her name on it, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to take 50 pictures of this thing, even though I'm surrounded by all of this gorgeous art. I'm taking 50 pictures of a plaque with Catherine's name on it. Do you have any response to the criticism that Prince William and Catherine aren't doing enough?
Well, I, first of all, have great sympathy, particularly for Prince William, if you think of the position that he's in, because, one of the problems of the Prince of Wales is he never knows when he's going to become king. And if your father's ill, then, of course, that becomes more urgent. And also, last year, his wife was ill. So there he is with an ill father and an ill wife and 3 small children. And I do know that they spend a lot of time going to school matches, involved school runs, all sorts of things, because the parents are always very discreet about it. But I think it is actually one of the sort of things that a modern father has to do. Because I remember when Prince George was born, watching Prince William sort of negotiating the car seat and driving himself, and he had the open shirt. And I thought, well, that's very different from the vision of Prince Charles when he picked Prince William up when he had a chauffeur and he was wearing a tie and so forth. And I think, it's very important that he should be a modern father and to be a hands-on father. So actually, I personally don't criticise him one bit. And of course, as Dickie says, they are actually doing quite a lot as well.
I'd like to add in, on that as well. He was criticised for spending time watching football. Well, that's part of his job. He was criticised for spending too much time on his Earthshot Prize and too much time down in Monaco making a speech in saving the seas. He's not doing anything different to what his father did when he was Prince of Wales. He spent time in the Prince's Trust. He spent time talking of architecture, about the environment, about business in the community, and about the Duchy of Cornwall. Prince William is also Duke of Cornwall. So he is working. Just because it doesn't make headlines, just because it's not in the newspaper, doesn't mean to say they're not doing anything. They are working.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Also, I'm glad that you brought up that a lot of the things that he pursues mirrors his father, because there is the other criticism is royalty with a lowercase r, as if he's making these drastic changes. But the reality is he is still doing a lot of the same things that his father did as the Prince of Wales. I mean, even Prince Philip, with how enthusiastic he is about the environment. So I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad I have such handsome and smart royal experts on the panel today, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm sorry in advance.
You do this every time. You apologise every time.
I apologize in advance. Let's talk.
It's
Meghan
H&M
Markle
again,
going
isn't
to Disneyland.
We know what's coming.
Yeah, you do know what's coming. Brace yourselves. All right, Dickie, how much do you think, when you look at that Disneyland slide, how much do you feel like Meghan tries to emulate Princess Diana? Because the second I saw those pictures, I thought, this is just Meghan trying to be Princess Diana yet again, with those images, trying to show us that. I also believe she's trying to monetize her children, but she does things constantly that just feel like a carbon copy of what Diana did. Nothing original whatsoever.
She doesn't even come up to Diana's kneecaps. So, to emulate Diana, impossible. There was only one Diana.
Yeah.
There will only
And she was a pain in your butt sometimes.
Yeah. And there will only ever be one Diana. I think, and I do question, is there a sort of historic personality disorder here? Because it's all about me, and I need plaudits about what I am doing. And every time you blink, there's something else. And I just wonder whether there is something of that nature within the makeup of the family. But to keep on and on, coming up with something new. I think the latest thing is about a restaurant, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you end up with your food with floral petals on top, and sort of trying to get rid of all that sort of stuff to get to the proper food, if indeed there is proper food.
Oh my gosh, if I want a process to get through my food, it's going to be a king cake. Like there's at least a prize at the end, which is the little baby. I guess, so you don't really do you not see, to me it's blatant that she's trying to be Diana, because I think she's trying to pull in
Diana's
Diana's
all you
audience.
like,
Yeah.
but it's not going to work.
Yeah, I would, okay.
At the end of the day, it's about being yourself. People used to say that Catherine is the new Diana. She's not the new Diana. She is Catherine.
Yeah.
In her own right. She's a personality in her own right. She does things the way she wants to do it, very different to the way that Diana did it. We've moved on from then. Sadly, Diana left us in 1997. She was divorced in 96. They separated in 92. She was a different era. Yeah. We are 30 years on from that.
Although they made some of the best television in the 90s, I will tell you,
Made some of the best television in the 90s, and the current Prince and Princess of Wales are making some of the best television in the
I agree with
21st
you.
century.
I can't disagree with you. Hugo, I think you kind of touched on this earlier about how the royal family doesn't have to chase anything. They're so, first of all, they've got these schedules that they work out. Everything makes sense. There's an ultimate goal at the end of the day. It's always about somebody else, not about themselves. Is there such thing as oversaturation? Are we being oversaturated with Meghan Markle right now?
Oh, well, yes, we are. But it's very interesting what you say, and going back to the trooping the colours. Somebody once wrote a very perceptive piece saying that the Queen, as she rode back to Buckingham Palace, just looked straight ahead. And one of the reasons was she wasn't sort of, like a prime minister, she wasn't seeking election. She knew that her position was secure and that she could do that. And so she just went straight ahead. And that was very important, I think.
Sorry to interrupt. And by doing that, she was doing what her troops were doing, looking straight ahead.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Discipline.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I think that was very important. in a way, I just wish that, I mean, here we are talking about Meghan Markle, but I suppose because she's a sort of soap opera thing and it's controversial. I mean, there will come a time, I suspect, when people will get completely bored with her. And that is a time I rather look forward to. And it'll all go quiet. And then they will sort of disappear. The other thing which worries me very much is those children will grow up and they will realise that they've been used by her. We see endless images of the backs of their heads. We see them at Disneyland with a heart over their faces. I mean, can't they go to Disneyland without being photographed? I mean, can't they just, without posting every single thing? And those children will also realise at some point that they haven't met either of their grandfathers or in their knowledge. And I think there'll be a terrible revenge, probably.
Yes, Google is going to bring some truth that's
Yes,
going to hurt them.
They're going to see this because there's a time when children grow up and they look at all these things, and it'll all be very visual and very much they'll be very aware of it. And the other thing, of course, is that the lovely thing about the Wales children is that they go to school together in England, and they're perfectly safe and perfectly, I mean, I know which school it is and I know where the school is, but nobody bothers them and they're left alone. But I mean, you know more about American schools than I do, but I mean, this is all going to be quite worrying when those two are going to school the whole time, is it not? I mean, it's going to be quite dangerous. And they've been given princely titles, which they don't need in California. The whole thing is ridiculous. It hasn't been thought through at all.
Because I don't think I was astute enough to recognize this, is there an example of a royal that put themselves out there too much or didn't talk the talk and walk the walk? I mean, immediately I think Fergie. Was there a time where somebody misbehaved so badly that people checked out? They rejected them. There was no longer any interest.
Well, some people rejected Diana too, didn't they?
Well, some people rejected Diana and some people rejected Fergie.
Most people rejected.
And if you go further back,
Yes.
there was a certain rejection of Wallace Simpson.
Yes, that's a very important name.
That's going way back, but
Well, there was
that
never
was a
any
different
acceptance of her in the first place.
Yes, but that was a different life altogether.
Yes.
It's almost like Meghan had a little bit of a benefit because there was a huge celebration around her, and people did. I mean, I started out loving her, so
British people did too.
Yeah.
Yes, the goodwill that was shown to her at that wedding. I mean, the crowds in Windsor. I was in Windsor at the time. Amazing, but she managed to turn it around very, very quickly by all sorts of examples of bad behaviour. Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry to go here again, but our next topic. Now, I actually want to ask you about trooping still before we move on to hotels, because did you know that Meghan is accepting an award on Saturday night, the same day of Trooping the Color? Which is also like in LA. She's accepting this award at a museum, a history museum in LA. Apparently her lawyer is on the board, so that's a convenient connection. I'm sure that's how she got this. While the city is burning down, there will be Meghan Markle with a glossy trophy in her hand. Does it surprise you at all, Dickie, that she would not sit this one out so the king, who has cancer, could have his birthday celebration?
I think the time element, it plays in our favour because there's an 8-hour time difference.
Yes.
So by the time she gets the award, the British papers would have already gone to bed with all the pictures of Trooping the Colour and all the misbehaviour of Prince Louis and George and Charlotte putting him down, telling him to behave himself.
Yeah.
So it'll make the Monday papers,
Yes.
but it won't make the Sundays because of that 8-hour time difference.
Well, Thank you,
God.
Yes, that's a very good point. I just think what is the purpose, Hugo, of all of these awards? Is it so that they're more sellable to brands? I don't look at Prince Harry's aviation trophy and think that it gives him an ounce of credibility in any direction whatsoever.
No, I'm afraid I don't understand them at all. And I think a lot of these companies are probably very happy to kind of get hold of them because they get some publicity for whatever it is that they're promoting. But that's about it. But it passes me by, I'm afraid.
Yeah, for this, it's for Meghan serving underserved communities. And I think to myself, who's underserved? People that don't get enough fruit spread? Because all I've heard from her
It's for going out and doing a bit of charitable work after the fires. With the cameras
3 or
in
4
tow.
hugs with a camera crew in her face? Yeah. What are your thoughts on the idea of her opening up the hotel? She made a comment to, I believe it was Fast Company magazine, I'm going to hold off on restocking and launching any new products on As Ever because I want to figure out what As Ever is. So I'm looking forward to the first quarter of 2026, and that's when I will make this announcement. And then within days, she tells Tina Knowles that she's pumping the brakes on As Ever. Tina Knowles is like, well, what are you going to do? Kind of putting her feet to the fire. Like, that's odd. As another female entrepreneur, I don't understand that decision. 2 days after that, or less, she posts that she is restocking within the next few days. So there's this yo-yo of information coming out. She tells Fast Company that she kind of sees As Ever. There's a hospitality element in its future. And then The Sun reports that she's looking to open up a hotel. I have never seen something so chaotic and so unorganized in my life, which is saying a lot considering my president's over the last few years. So, Dickie.
When I was growing up, which was quite a long time ago, we used to have a saying, if you were doing everything, that you were a jack of all trades, a master of none.
Oh, yes.
I rest my case.
Yeah, there you go. There's your mic drop. Hugo, it's fascinating to watch somebody make so many poor decisions.
Well, yes, it is. And they come so thick and fast, as I said, largely because the first one doesn't work out. So she then tries to think of something else. And I think that's probably why there's so much tension in their household and why staff find it so difficult, because they never know what's going to happen next.
I think the problem is their staff is changing all the time.
Yes.
And with new staff come new ideas, and then they don't work, and then they get rid of them and they get somebody else. So I think a lot of blame must be their own staff coming up with ideas. Let's try this, let's try that, thinking there's a bottomless pit of money. There isn't a bottomless pit of money. You've got to start earning in order to survive.
And you've got to keep going, haven't you?
You've got to keep
don't
going.
Work out immediately. So you've got to keep, sometimes, I mean, some of the best companies in the world have started up very badly, and then as time goes
and
on...
It's no good starting up something new all the time. Concentrate on one thing and make a success of it.
Yes.
You will know if it's not going to be successful. Don't hang on if it's not going to be successful. Get rid of it and give yourself a bit of breathing space and then come up with something new.
Right, because by Meghan's account, As Ever, that launch was, according to her, a success. She says, I sold out. I sold out in 45 minutes. She's told us that several times.
How many jam jars were there?
Exactly. We want specifics. But according to Meghan, that was a success. And if you think back to 1 year ago now, she, through Nacho, announced American Riviera Orchard dog biscuits the same day we found out we were going to see Catherine, the Princess of Wales, at Trooping the Colour. So it does feel like she gives up too soon, and it, to me, doesn't make sense in this particular case because she's told us, I'm winning in this space. I'm excelling in this space. Well, if you were really excelling, why wouldn't you commit to the bit?
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree with you.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go stay at a Meghan Markle hotel. I don't see the value in that. She's just all over the place. She's all over the board. And podcast host, she's a calligrapher, Netflix host. Did either one of you sit through all of the episodes of season 1? There's a no. That's a strong no. Did you watch all the episodes of With Love, Meghan?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I did.
We need to get you a trophy. You need to have a Glossy Award.
I've watched all of them. I've wasted so many hours of my life, but I'm busy. I'm multitasking at the same time, so I've got the screen of what I'm watching there, and I'm carrying on doing a bit of work.
Well, how are you ever going to concentrate and learn how to freeze ice with flower petals in it if you're multitasking?
It's fairly easy. It's not rocket science.
So when you watched all of the episodes, were you surprised to learn that they were going to give her a second season?
I was surprised. They're giving a second season because they filmed everything that they wanted in the first season.
Yes.
They'd filmed it already. So
they filmed it already, and the thing is that they're monetizing it until the end of the contract comes about, which is it's up fairly shortly, isn't it?
In September.
I doubt there will be
Are they going to re-sign?
So that's the conversation we've been having lately is will there be will they extend it?
I can't see it.
But the conspiracies are they conspiracies? They're on the Daily Mail. Are that Netflix wants to keep a relationship with Meghan specifically in case the relationship goes south because they want to have access to her, and they want to make sure that they're who gets the exclusive. That's a pretty cynical take, but I'm not surprised.
But also the other side of the coin, if they really want to have the possibility of approaching her, they can end the contract. She will always go back to them. Doesn't mean to say that they will always go back to her, because she'll always want them before they want her.
Well,
because that is a platform to promote Meghan Markle.
Meghan. She's also close to Paramount. We saw them, without doing any promotion for their projects on Netflix, we did see them go to promote One Love, which was a Paramount project. They showed up on that red carpet. And then I think it's the CEO's wife is featured in With Love, Meghan. She's definitely keeping nice with them. And she spent some time with Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez at a Beyonce concert, which I thought was interesting because Harry had a relationship with Amazon's video platform. Before they signed with Netflix, they were supposed to do something with Invictus. I think that they had to move that over to Netflix, and unfortunately that was a commercial failure, the Invictus thing with Netflix. So you see her mixing, you see her networking. She's definitely the more aggressive one of the pair, but I take that back because Prince Harry literally pitched Meghan Markle to Disney. It was a Lion King event where Beyonce and Jay-Z were
she does voiceovers and nothing came of it.
Oh my gosh, how awkward was that? That was so awkward.
You know, at the end of the day, what could conceivably happen is that Netflix will cut their losses and say, right, that's the end of the contract. They put her on the back burner in the event of they might want to use her again. This time they can call the shots on how much they pay, and it won't be in three figures.
Because the return on investment just was not there.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, a lot of these companies do is to sort of sack somebody, because that gets them a lot of publicity as well. You know, you hire them and then fire them later. That can be very
They got
effective.
them right at the beginning, you know, Duke and Duchess of Sussex, big names, just arrived in America. Let's get them while they're fresh. Well, they've been there 5 years now.
And look at what they've produced. That's one commercial success, slamming the British royal family, so many historical errors, factual errors throughout that. They couldn't believe they weren't nominated for an Emmy. I'm like, anybody that's checking what's being said along with history books is going, well, you probably didn't win an Emmy because this is not in the right category. This is story time. This is pretend.
And you were asking about, you know, did I watch With Love? I watched the first one, and of course I watched the very end bit because I wanted to see when Prince Harry would be wheeled on.
Hugo.
Why?
Shame on you.
Well, I wanted to see when Prince Harry was wheeled on at the end, just to give it a bit of credence. And I wasn't wrong. He appeared.
And that was so awkward.
It was a spare part. He was right at the back.
Spare, still the spare. There are reports that he's going to launch a commercial venture in the next few weeks or months. I can't for the life of me think of what that could be. I thought maybe an alcohol brand. They say Meghan is coming out with a rosé. So would Prince Harry also come out with an alcohol brand? It is truly like it
gives us something to talk about in 3 months' time.
Yeah, thanks, Prince Harry. But also get a real job. Hugo, he has to feel like something's missing in California.
Well, he must do, yes. I mean, it's a bit like the Duke of Windsor, you know, who, if you'd woken him up at 4 a.m. and asked him if he had any regrets, he would have said no. But just look at his eyes, you know, look at Prince Harry, and he looks miserable the whole time. As you know, my theory is that he's petrified of her and petrified of losing her, which is a horrible syndrome to be in.
Duke and Duchess of Windsor married in May 1937 and never lived happily ever after.
No.
Oof.
But she had a certain amount of dignity and looked after him very well, and that's not going to happen this time round. So I don't see there's a comparison between those two ladies anyway. A lot of people do, but I don't.
Yeah,
because she, you know, she was a very reluctant, didn't really want to marry him. He just wanted to get away, and I mean, unless he's really stupid, he must have realised they wouldn't accept her, and he put her into a really difficult position. And this situation is rather almost the opposite, really. I mean, Prince Harry, you know, presumably was complicit in the whole thing, but he must wonder sometimes what he'd given up. You know, I mean, I like making the comparison that 1 minute he was Captain General of the Royal Marines, which is a very distinguished position, and the next minute he's lying barefoot in the park in California. You know, where does this lead? It's a bit like, I'm afraid, Diana on that boat at the end.
Yep.
Utterly miserable. I mean, you know, when she had so much that she could offer, so much she could contribute, and she's stuck on stupid millionaire's boat.
Yeah. And you can disagree with me, but I felt like that entire thing was just to upset Dr. Khan.
Oh, I'm sure.
I felt like that entire escapade was just to affect one person, and it changed everything. It ruined everything.
There was also an element of boredom. I remember speaking to her a few days before she went off to the south of France for the second time. Why are you doing it?
That's what I'm concerned with Prince Harry. He had a purpose. He had a true calling, a true meaning here.
And he was good at it.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're always happier if you're putting things into life than taking things out, which is what he's doing now. I mean, he was very good. I mean, you know, I saw him in the Caribbean and they loved it when he played cricket with the kids. And he was, you know, he was engaged.
He was superb. He had contact with people. He was very good in the army. Army is family. And the first time he probably ever actually felt he had family around him. But after 10 years, he gave it up. He gave it up because he was being pulled out of operational. No young guy wants to be pulled out of operational because that's what they join the military for. But there are 1,000,001 jobs to be done, and you can't be operational through the whole of your career. You've got to do other things. He didn't want to do that.
One of the things we talked about this Telegraph article that's kind of critical of William and Catherine about how they're not doing enough, but they also mention that Prince William talking to Prince Harry is not a priority. It's not on his agenda. I almost don't have any issue with that. I mean, I should just say I don't have it. I feel like Prince William focusing on the future of the monarchy, his family, and staying above the fray is the best possible way to go. Harry and Meghan attract drama, and he has really come out looking like a leader throughout the last 2 years between the multiple cancer battles and never complain, never explain, just keeping his head above water throughout all of the accusations.
He has shown, sorry, Hugo.
No, I agree with that, yes. But
he has shown that he is a leader. He also knows full well that any contact with his brother will be all over the American media in a nanosecond. And he's not prepared for that. And he's just not interested. And he supports his father. His father, yes, obviously hurts because no parent likes the idea of a son going off-piste, wants contact, but Harry has shown that he cannot be trusted, that he cannot have a conversation without it being broadcast. And the family are not prepared for that.
How unfair that you feel like you can't communicate what you need to communicate for your sanity with your sibling because you know it will end up in writing somewhere.
Well, that's the trouble, yeah. I mean, you know, the other day Prince Harry was going on about how long would his father live and things. Well, I mean, if he isn't talking to his father, how does he know anything? But I mean, he was speculating. That was not helpful at all, not at all appropriate either. And so, but I'm afraid Diana did the same. I mean, one of the problems when the marriage was going wrong was that everything was ending up in the Daily Mail.
She always had contact with the newspapers. Yeah. She had a friend worked on the Daily Mail. She did that dreadful interview for BBC Panorama. She cooperated with Andrew Morton, the book Diana, Her True Story.
Tell me about that, because I've read about you. I've read about you in this scenario. Did she lie to your face and tell you that she had nothing to do with Diana?
She lied to everybody.
She
lied to everybody.
Let's role play. I'm Princess Diana. Do you call her in the room like a principal and say, "Sit down, I need to talk to you about something"? Like paint this picture for me, like your beautiful tie.
We had word at Buckingham Palace that this thing was coming out, serialized on a Sunday Times for 2 consecutive Sundays. Now in London, the Sunday newspapers drop at 10 o'clock Saturday night outside Charing Cross Station in the centre of London, and I went up and bought the Sunday Times, and I read this at about 10:30 at night by the time I got home, and my eyes came out like organ stops. I didn't believe it, and I thought, no, I'll leave it till the morning, and I phoned her at 5 o'clock in the morning, said, "What's this?" She phoned me at 5 o'clock in the morning and said, "What do I do? What do I do?" I said, "Ma'am, you've already done it." I suggest you pour yourself a stiff whiskey and do nothing. "What do you mean by that?" I said, "You don't go out today, you don't go out tomorrow, you don't answer the telephone, you don't make telephone calls, you've got an engagement on Tuesday, I will be with you. Aside from that, you keep stum. Nothing, no contact with anybody. By the way, did you help him?" And there was a stunned silence, and she vehemently denied having helped him. And yet there was so much in there of her words.
And the palace did such an excellent job of dismissing any association. You know, absolutely not. Diana wasn't involved, to the point where people started to call Andrew Morton a liar. And Andrew Morton gets nervous about this. So Diana works with him behind the scenes to go to one of the sources that was on record, go to her house, and embrace her with a photographer, just behind the bushes, so that she can almost give her little stamp or her endorsement after the palace has done such an excellent job of killing the credibility. You're watching her work behind the scenes.
She lied to her brother-in-law, who's the late Queen's private secretary.
Oh, that's right.
She lied to everybody, and everybody stood up for her and briefed the then head of the Press Complaints Commission, Lord MacGregor, who came out in her defence. What were the words?
Well, what were the words? Yeah, I mean, it was
something like blood on other people's misery or something like
something
that.
like that.
But he came out in her defence, and it took almost a year for it to actually come out that she had helped Andrew Morton indirectly.
Yes.
Indirectly, through a friend of hers, Dr. James Courthout, who took a tape recorder into Kensington Palace, asked the questions that Andrew Morton had given him, and Diana answered them, and they were recorded on tape cassette.
And that's very her as well, I hate to say, because she, if it sort of didn't happen, she got away with it, then it just didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
I mean, like after the Hewitt affair was over, it had never happened, you know, in her mind.
Because it actually came out around about this time of the year.
Oh, wow.
In 1992.
And am I not right in thinking also that, of course, you have to put the timeline right, is they all knew about those tapes that were going to come out. And so they all wanted to get their stories out before, you know, the Squidgy Gate tape and the Camilla Gate tape and things. You put it all in order, it all begins to make sense.
Oh my gosh.
But they should never give interviews, that's the other thing. They should never do it.
No, none of them.
They come back and bite you.
They do. Well, especially with Harry and Meghan, when they say something, like we have receipts from 3 months ago, 3 years ago, where they say the exact opposite. It blows my mind that they don't realize that they said something completely different a few years ago or a few months ago. When you have Bradby sitting in front of you asking you about racism, and you're saying, I never said that. Meghan never said that. The press said that. Did she say racism? It's unconscious bias. You just redefined an entire conversation that happened a year ago. Why didn't you come out the next day and say it wasn't racism?
It actually happened in the Oprah interview, because she raised racism when she was being interviewed on her own by Winfred Opry, that it happened when she was pregnant.
Yes.
About 10 minutes later, Harry came into the interview and said it was raised before they got married. Yeah. So when was it?
Oh, but Oprah's not paying attention. Oprah's not paying that good attention, or she wouldn't have, but should have challenged that right there and said, well, when was it? Or are these people just blatantly racist all the time, which we know they're not?
And the awful thing was that by playing sort of a racism card and a mental health card, she made it very difficult to be criticised in the immediate aftermath of that, because otherwise you were going to get into big trouble.
Yes, it was impossible.
Yes.
If you said that it wasn't true, then you were automatically considered a racist. And so you were in a very difficult position to talk about it at all immediately following it.
And the Tom Bradby interview was interesting, because you could see him sort of biting back every now and again. But I was thinking to myself, one of the considerations he has in his mind is this interview going to suddenly end? If he goes too far. So he let a lot of things slip past, didn't he? And
but
probably hoped the viewer
very little challenging.
Yeah, but
hoped the viewer would realise that he, what he was doing. But
they never talk to anybody that will push back, though. Do you think the audience is keen to that, where they've realized that if Meghan is going to sit down with somebody? Because I found out shortly after the Drew Barrymore interview that Meghan had access to all of the questions. When Drew organically brings out a picture of her and Princess Diana, that was approved by Meghan.
I'm sure. Yes.
As a consumer, let's just pretend I like them enough to purchase something from them. It takes all credibility is thrown out the window when I see that you never are asked tough questions and you tap dance to ensure that you're. But wait, from the palace perspective, would you say you would only give Prince William to somebody that you know is going to be gentle with him?
No, gentle doesn't come into it.
Really?
If you're going to be up against an interviewer, then you've got to be prepared to answer all the questions. Now, in my day before I became a courtier, I was a broadcast journalist. And I interviewed, I'll give you an example. I went to interview Prince Philip on one occasion. Now, on that particular day, I had received in the post the latest edition of the Worldwide Fund for Nature newspaper, in which the headline story was about third world countries paying off WWF bribes in order to turn a blind eye to poaching. So I raised that question. My first question to him was that very issue about bribes, and he went apoplectic until I produced the newspaper. And he said, "Oh, I haven't seen this." And then he read it. And then we carried on with the interview, and he said, "Well, it is rubbish." But I challenged him right at the very beginning. And if you're going to put yourself up, then you've got to be prepared to answer tough questions. I mean, we take the King when he was Prince of Wales, being interviewed by Jonathan Dimbleby, which was a disaster, because the genesis of that whole interview was going to be something soft about the Prince's trust, what a fine fellow he is, how he's helped young people, interview young people, a sort of mixture of talking heads. But it changed. Goalposts were moved by the private secretary, and he...
Wait, so did the King know it changed? Did the King know it changed before that?
Allegedly, the private secretary said to me, "Oh, he's decided this is the way he's going." I said, "Well, you realise it's going to be warts and all. Is he prepared for that?" And they said yes.
I don't think he knew that particular question was going to be asked.
I don't think so, but he was asked about his relationship with Diana and his relationship with Camilla at the time. And he said the marriage had irretrievably broken down, which is why he was seeing Camilla. But you've got to be prepared to have tough questions. Occasionally, the interviewee would ask, "What's the line of questioning?" When I interviewed Charles when he was Prince of Wales, I was never asked for a list of questions. When I interviewed Diana, and I did the only solo interview with her before the Bashir one, I wasn't asked for a list of questions. There were some controversial issues, and she answered them without blinking. So you've got to be prepared. If you put yourself up, you've got to be prepared to answer the questions. Unfortunately, the media today, they don't push back. They don't answer the probing questions, or they agree to a list of questions and don't deviate. If they deviated, and if the person walked out, fine, the question's been answered, hasn't it?
Yeah, if you're storming out, I think that tells us enough
about the answer. It's a whole new ballgame.
Well, yes.
Whole new ballgame.
That's very true, Hugo, because specifically with Harry and Meghan, I see the Prince and Princess of Wales and the King and Queen talk to everybody, talk to all sorts of different outlets. But when it comes to Harry and Meghan, they've got a core. People Magazine. People Magazine's always very generous to them. Like things like In Style, or just these, I don't know, just people, again, that are not going to challenge them. So it's to the point where my eyes almost get lost in the back of my head when I see people exclusive about Harry and Meghan, because I'm like, did Meghan actually make the phone call? Because it's possible.
Yeah, well, People Magazine are going to do it because it sells magazines, doesn't it? But there's going to come a time when the circulation drops off. And why is it dropping off? Oh, because people are bored with the interviewee. Because
it's just a glorified press release, and that's not what we want. No. You know, we want somebody that says, "But what about this?" Hugo, is this one of the problems with Harry and Meghan, that there is that lack of authenticity, and because we're not seeing the truth, and because we're just seeing their version of events, it's just we can't trust it.
As long as they're the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, the media will fall over their tongues to get them.
Oh my gosh. Hugo, let's just go get in line right now to Parliament. I think it's right down the street. We'll get some sticks. We'll have "We want privacy" written on one side so they know we're representing Harry and Meghan. But also let's try to get those titles removed. I mean, that's going to be... Do you ever see that happening? But either of you, do you ever see that happening in the future?
Well, no, because first of all, the government's got more important things to think about.
Very much
it's
so.
Going to be, and also it would look sort of vindictive and petty and things like that. But I personally agree with you that, of course, it's one thing to say don't use HRH, but Duke and Duchess of Sussex still is what they're trading on. I've said it a million times before, we would not be in the slightest bit interested in anything that Meghan Markle said if she hadn't married Prince Harry.
Oh my gosh, isn't that the truth? And
Simple as that.
I have been challenged, and it was you, Hugo, that I was talking to. Someone told me that Diana, did you tell me Diana did not get stripped of her HRH, but she wanted to?
Well, again, I mean, Dickie had more to do with her than I did, but she had a habit of changing her story as time went on.
Yeah.
And I was told, actually by a cousin of the royal family, that she was asked by the Queen, did she want the HRH or did she not want it? And she said, no, I don't want it. And then afterwards said, oh, they took it away from me. Somebody also told me that her lawyer said she would get a better deal if she didn't have the HRH.
Oh, wow.
That I also heard. Would you?
And Dickie, I read that she was
the...
telling Richard Kay to put things in the newspaper about her HRH to generate sympathy. Did you hear that at the time, or did you?
Well, Richard Kay was a great mate. They used to they used to meet and sit in the car and talk a lot. The whole business of HRH is sort of fairly common, that it does go with separation and ultimately with divorce.
It now does, but it didn't then.
Yes,
it's now been laid down, which is much more sensible.
It didn't then, but the reason for asking whether she wanted it, and it wouldn't have made any difference whether she had it or not, she was Diana. Mm-hmm. She was a draw. She was an attraction.
Like Madonna or Cher.
Yeah, she could have been called anything.
Or Meghan Markle.
She was an element in her own right. So the fact that it did go away, it's a mix. You know, one person says one thing, somebody else says something else.
But it's so extraordinary that a couple of things occurred to me. One is this: when they'd gone through all that hassle with the Duchess of Windsor's HRH, you know, which some people say it was illegal the way it was done, and certainly the Duke of Windsor minded bitterly. She didn't mind so much, but he really did mind, and instructed everybody in Paris to call her by Royal Highness. I remember hearing them do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which is so extraordinary, is so that was one issue. So then it all comes up again. In 1961, I think it was, the Queen agreed with the Duke of Windsor what was going to happen for the funeral, his funeral and her funeral. And one of the things which was agreed way back in 1961 was that flags would fly half-mast on the day of the Duchess of Windsor's funeral in Britain. Mm-hmm. And they did.
Oh, they did?
Yes, they certainly did, and nobody bothered or thought about it. Well, what happens when Diana dies and there's no flag on Buckingham Palace? We know the reasons why there wasn't. I kept saying to I suppose I better not say which news company, but anyway, one of them was very much involved with at the time, please show Windsor Castle where the flag is happily at half-mast, you know, because it was a military fortress.
Yeah.
And Buckingham Palace never did that.
I'll correct you on that, because the flag wouldn't have flown at half-mast at Windsor because the Queen was in residence.
No, she wasn't. She was in Balmoral.
Oh, that's right.
For the funeral?
No. The funeral wasn't at Windsor. So Windsor Castle has always flies either the Union Standard or the Royal Standard. The Royal Standard is never at half-mast, as you know.
No, absolutely.
So the Royal Standard, so the Union flag, Union Jack, was at half-mast all that week on Windsor Castle. Mm. There was no flag at all on Buckingham Palace.
And we tried all that week to get them to listen, because when Diana died, I was back in the office at about 4:45 on the Sunday, 4:45 on the Sunday morning. I phoned Windsor Castle to get their flag down to half-mast. I phoned Balmoral, I phoned Sandringham. No flag over St James's Palace. There was nobody in residence at Clarence House. And again, Clarence House traditionally didn't have a flag flying above it, except the Queen Mother's flag. And the flags came down to half-mast, but we tried to get the message across. There had to be a flag flying. And we kept on getting the message back. Well, they've got their minds are focused on too many other things. Well, but by the time we got to the end of that week,
Well, what the Queen actually decided at the end of the week was that, because when she came down to London, naturally her Royal Standard went up, and as soon as she went to left Buckingham Palace, Westminster Abbey, she technically came out of residence, and at that point they did the flag. But she was reluctant, quite rightly, I think, because it was a break of tradition, and I suppose that was always what the drama was, wasn't it?
It was about tradition. No flag had ever flown from the mast at Buckingham Palace since 1837, when Queen Victoria first went there, other than the Royal Standard.
Well, that is a beautiful way to end the show. I mean, I could talk to you guys all day. Agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. Fascinating discussion. Hugo Vickers, Dickie Arbiter, loves of my life. Thank you so much for being here today, and I had a blast.